Hi, everybody. This is Empowering Democracy, and I'm your host, Joe Firestone. This is another show on the Dump the Corruption subject, covering the fundraising of CPC members. Tonight, we're going to talk about Dan Goldman of New York and his fundraising, Sara Jacobs of California, her fundraising, and Zoe Lofgren of California and her fundraising. Will any of them pass the litmus test? Once again, for those who don't know or who are new here, the litmus test is a rule, or at least it's based on a rule. And the rule is vote against every candidate except those who won't take money from wealthy corporations, individuals, political action committees, PACs, or party committees, and who repudiate all super PAC support. What we're trying to do here is to examine the CPC incumbents now to see if any of them as candidates took money from wealthy corporations, took money from rich individuals, took money from PACs or party committees, and who tried to repudiate all super PAC support when they got any. So that's the litmus test. Let's now move to the first of our now incumbents, but then candidates, specifically Dan Goldman in the New York 10th. And let's look at his page on Open Secrets. So let me bring that up. Here's the summary data on that race. Dan Goldman raised $7,092,412. He spent $7,055,074, ended with cash on hand of $37,338. He was running against Benin Hamdan, who raised $25,028, spent $24,983, and who had $45 cash on hand. Open Secrets doesn't have data for the following candidates: Matthew Goldstein and Stephen Spear. As far as outside spending on the candidates is concerned, there was $559,976 in favor of Carlina Rivera. $559,976. She had no outside money spent against her. Then Green Party candidate, who was Yu Line, was supported by $150,000 in outside spending, but opposed by $405,001 of outside spending. Then there was Mondaire Jones, supported by $150,438 in outside spending. Dan Goldman got $127,699 in outside spending. That's basically super PAC and carry committee spending. And Maud Marone got $3,452 in outside spending, supporting her. Now, why did it take $7 million on the part of Dan Goldman to beat a Republican candidate who raised and spent roughly $25,000? The answer is the action wasn't in the general election race. The action was in the primary race. It was the primary race in which most of that $7 million was actually spent. So let's see if we can come up with facts about the primary race as we go through the tabs here. In the general, Dan Goldman got 83.9% of the vote. We see the source of his funds. Small individual contributions, only 99,000 out of that 7,092,412. From large individual contributors, people who gave more than $200, he raised $2,057,706. From PACs, he raised $97,005. From candidate self-financing, he's very rich, he spent raised nearly $5 million in candidate self-financing. That was 68.93%, of what he raised. I'm not going to go into the numbers for Hamdan because they were so small. But let's go on to look at contributors. This was an odd race. There was no top contributor. There's no data on the candidates who were running. There was no data on Dan Goldman, no data on Hamdan, no data on Matthew Goldstein, who ran as independent, and no data on Steve Spear. I'm looking at industries now to see if I can find something. Well, Dan Goldman did get, by industry, $299,898 from securities and investment, $267,775 from lawyers and law firms. From retired people, 145,710. From real estate, 112,743. From Democratic Liberal groups, 66,300. From business services, 40,880. From education, 40,450. From miscellaneous finance, 36,277. From nonprofit institutions, 34,700. TV, movies, and music, 24,060. Electronics, manufacturing, and equipment, $24,000 roughly. Printing and publishing, $22,000. Leadership packs, $22,000. Civil servants, 20,856. Miscellaneous services, 19,700. Insurance, 19,700. Food and beverage, 17,000. Building trade unions, 15,000. And other, 14,300. There was no data on some of the other candidates here. In terms of sectors, there's no data on the sector breakdowns either. On PACs, there may not be much on PACs either. We'll see. Well, there's something. About 19,000 from business PACs, 37,000 from labor PACs, and 37,000 from ideological PACs. There's no PAC category data for some of the other candidates. That's somebody arriving. It is D. Hiya, D.
Hi, Joe. How you doing?
I am fine, thank you. Everyone, this is D. Piers, co-host of Around the World with Brandy and D, and my good friend.
Yes. So now we're in the New York district race, huh?
Yeah, I'm going over the New York district race. There's a lot of data missing because the real action there was in the primary race. And it doesn't look like Open Secrets picked up very much about the primary race. What was really interesting, though, was that $7 million was raised and spent by Dan Goldman. Okay, we know that in this race, Mondaire Jones ran. And Uline Badniu ran. In this case, I believe is a green. You can see some of this from the outside spending. Carlina Rivera, who was a progressive Democrat, was supported by 559,976 in outside money. And Uline Niu was supported by 150,000 in outside money, but was opposed by $405,001 in outside money. Mondaire Jones was supported by 157,438 outside money. There was nothing against him. Dan Goldman got 128,699 in outside money. But it was pretty clear that Dan Goldman won the primary pretty much on the strength of his endorsement by the Washington Post he had strong family and friendship connections to the Washington Post. So they strongly supported him. And also, he was very rich. So he raised a pile of money from large individual contributions. That was 30% of what he raised, 29% really. He got about 97,000 in PAC money. That was a small percentage of what he raised. His candidate self-financing was nearly $5 million, though.
Hmm.
So his large individual contributions and his candidate self-financing, well, they mean that he fails a litmus test.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, that's where he got all that money. And that money eventually allowed him to beat Mondaire Jones in the primaries and also Uli Niu. So that's what happened. And that's how Dan Goldman won. If the litmus test were applied, uh, he would have lost in the primary.
Oh, definitely.
So he fails the litmus test. He's another CPC member who goes down. I'd say goes down swinging, but I don't even know if he was swinging. So let's move to California. And there we have Sara Jacobs. Sara Jacobs was the incumbent, and she did win. She ran against Stan Kaplan, who's the Republican who ran in the race. Sara Jacobs raised $1,656,385. She spent $1,668,525, but she ended with $90,027 cash on hand.
Excuse
Probably
me,
from,
Joe.
huh?
You're not it's not on the screen.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I am not sharing this yet. Steve Wolfbrand says Ulysses Hernandez, also Nithya Rahman, Kenneth Mejia. I think they could pass the litmus test. Well, I can look them up and see. I kind of bet they would, but okay, I am going to look them up, Steve. I don't know if we'll cover them in this program, but it is a good idea to cover them and see if they can pass. But anyway, while I'm at this, let me share the screen. And get you Sara Jacobs. Is it on screen now, Dee?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So we are good to go now. Outside spending on these candidates was very small. $272 for Sara Jacobs. $0 for Juan Hidalgo who was a Republican candidate running against Sara Jacobs. He did have some outside spending against him. It amounted to $8. So we can truly say that did not affect this race. Sara Jacobs won by 61.9% of the vote. Stan Kaplan, who raised and spent $121,099, did get, what was it, 39% of the vote or something, 38% of the vote. Yeah, pretty good for someone who was so much outspent. Large individual contributions for Sara Jacobs, 613,332. About 37% of what she raised. PAC contributions were $205,050, 12.38% of what she raised. Her self-financing was $782,450. So she fails in the areas of large individual contributions, PAC contributions, and candidate self-financing. All three of those areas, she fails the litmus test. Stan Kaplan didn't raise much, but what he raised came from large individual contributions, from PAC contributions, and a small amount of candidate self-financing, $18,233. So let's go back to the tabs and see if there's anything else interesting that can be gleaned from them. No data for either Sara Jacobs or Stan Kaplan. Let's see if there was any industry data. Sara Jacobs got 106,213 from retired people. Securities and investment, 58,800. Lawyers and law firms, 49,575. Real estate, 44,850. Democratic Liberal, 42,100. Building trade unions, 33,500. Pro-Israel, 26,550. Nonprofit institutions, 22,900. Health professionals, 18,575. Let's check. There's nothing else illuminating here. Let's check the sectors and how they fell for Sara Jacobs. No candidate data on the sectors. Interesting, they weren't reporting the data. Look at PACs. Sara Jacobs, 27,500 from business PACs, 112,500 from labor PACs, 69,562 from ideological PACs. Stan Kaplan got $8,135 from ideological PACs. Yeah, I went over that already. Let's see. Let's look at outside spending again. $272 supporting Sara Jacobs. 8 opposing Juan Hidalgo, who must have run in the primaries. Outside groups spending in this election. It was negligible. Sierra Club, $10. Planned Parenthood, 0. Planned Parenthood votes, $8. Courage California Super PAC, 262. So, D, what's your take on Sara Jacobs?
She's a no-go.
Why is she a no-go?
Where she's taking the money from. She's not. She's not. I mean, she's bored. I mean, we want a candidate that's not bored.
We want a candidate that doesn't take money from rich people,
Correct.
that doesn't take money from PACs,
Correct.
and that doesn't self-finance.
Yes, we want the average American. The average, I should say North American. The average citizen.
Well, we don't want someone who's rich enough to buy themselves a congressional seat.
Right. We want
Because,
somebody that goes around knocking on doors, gets to know the people in the community, has to go there and earn the votes.
yes,
And they
because
sit down and they talk to the
because
people and they know what their needs are, what they want. They really know firsthand the people.
and because they're also likely to represent the people who put them there.
Right. That they're feeling the pain, the same situations, or they're empathetic to people.
Yes, absolutely. So let us move on. So we have I should say further. Uh, we do agree, D and I, that Sara Jacobs fails the litmus test. So that means 2 out of the 3 candidates for tonight have already failed.
It
Okay,
would be really cute if we had like some kind of meme or something where it actually showed that, you'd flush them down the toilet, it'd be funny.
it would be funny. Can we get a meme like that?
I don't know. We'd have to ask around if somebody could help us get something where this person's a no-go, boom, flush them down the toilet.
Yeah, maybe Fran would help us.
Yeah, Fran would be somebody that could do that.
She could do it fine. Uh, okay, we are getting near the end of the Congressional Progressive Caucus now. By my count, after we finish tonight's candidates, we have actually McGovern left and Pallone of New Jersey, Sidney Kamlager Dove of California, then Stephen Horsford, Nevada, also Eleanor Holmes Norton of DC, who's not actually a full congressperson, also Mark DeSaulnier of California, and Jonathan Jackson, okay, of Illinois. So that's all
Will
that's left.
we?
Huh?
Yeah, will we be able to find that person?
Will we be able to find even one person in the Congressional Progressive Caucus who passes the litmus test? Anyway, so far 2 more tonight are washed down the drain. Sara Jacobs and Dan Goldman. Of course, we expected him to be washed down the drain because of the way he won that district race in the New York 10th.
That was so wrong.
Hmm?
That was so wrong. And that was disgusting.
Well, the whole process was so wrong. The process that got Mondaire Jones to leave his district and to run in that race. And then the intervention of Dan Goldman, who was uh, who's a Levi Strauss ad. I mean, he's a Levi Strauss heir.
Right, but
Millions and millions and millions, and buys a congressional seat by spending $5 million of his own money.
what does he know about the people in the district?
Well, I don't know. He probably lives in the district because uh, he's among those wealthy enough to live in New York rather comfortably. I would certainly love to live in New York on his money. And New York can be a wonderful place to live if you have the money. Anyway, our third candidate is longtime congressional representative, going all the way back to the 1970s and Watergate days, when at the time she was a pretty flaming liberal. And I am talking about Zoe Lofgren in the California 18th. She, of course, was the incumbent, and she was the winner. She raised $1,884,334, spent $2,633,502, ended with cash on hand of $411,370, beat Peter Hernandez, a Republican, who spent $250,804. I'm sorry, raised $250,804, spent $248,472. Zoe Lofgren had cash on hand of $411,370 because she had accumulated a good deal of money from previous races. Peter Hernandez ended with $2,299. The other candidates in the race, there aren't any listed here. Hang on a second, let me see what I can find. Okay, I've gone to the candidates tab now. See if we can pick up any more. In small individual contributions, Zoe Lofgren raised only $76,428, 4% of what she raised. Large individual contributions, the well-off people and the rich, $1,087,601. PAC contributions, $509,817. No candidate self-financing. She had another category that had a good deal of dollars in it, $210,488. I wonder what that is, but of course I do not know based on the data provided here. Okay, Pete Hernandez raised $168,477 from well-off and rich people. Small PAC contributions of $89.99. And small individual contributions of $73,546. So that's what he did. So going back to Zoe Lofgren, she fails because she took a lot of PAC money and because of the large individual contributions also. Let's check on the outside spending in her favor. Only $2,134 in favor of Zoe Lofgren and nothing opposed. So outside spending wasn't a factor in this race. But PACs were a factor. Zoe had 369,605 from business PACs. I think a lot of that is Silicon Valley money because part of Silicon Valley is in her district. And I think there's general agreement she's pretty bought by Silicon Valley. 77,500 in labor PACs and 47,112 in ideological PACs. Let's see if we can find out more. Nope, it's not here under the PACs. Let's see what we can find under sectors. Sometimes the sectors are very revealing. Nope. No sector data there for some reason. People are not doing the reporting in the California districts they should be doing. Two open secrets. Look at the industries tab, see if that tells us anything. Electronics and manufacturing and equipment, 192,972. Retired, 188,023. Lawyers and law firms, 169,305. Internet, 167,625. Securities and investments, 116,035. Accountants, 50,000. Democratic Liberal, 47,371. Crop production and basic processing, 46,900. Lobbyists, 40,620. Education, 38,130. Real estate, 37,472. Leadership PACs, 28,000. And recreation, live entertainment, 27,000. Public sector unions, 25,000. TVs, movies, and music, 23,000. Nonprofit institutions, 21,357. Building trade unions, 20,000. Health professionals, 20,000. Human rights, 20,000. Okay. There's nothing revealing in the figures for Peter Hernandez. He was pretty much a non-factor in this election. Okay, let's go back to Zoe's contributions again. Zoe got 65.8% of the vote, so she easily won. We see very little of her money came from small individual contributions. The majority of it came from large individual contributions from rich and well-off people, 57.72%. PAC contributions were healthy at 609,817. That was 27%. There was another category of 11.17% that we don't know about here. We don't see much about that. There was no candidate self-financing. So for Zoe Lofgren, we see she fails on the criterion of PAC contributions, and she fails in the category of large individual contributions. So she fails the litmus test too. So there's a clean sweep tonight. Nobody passes the litmus test.
That's sad. It really is sad that we haven't found anybody to pass the test.
And Doc says, investigate Katie Porter Zionist. We have already investigated Katie Porter Zionist, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Katie Porter is in what district in California? Do you know offhand? Anybody know offhand? I know Katie Porter's figures are very striking. And this search will tell us. She's in California District 47. If we look at that, here's why they're so striking. She raised $25,650,290. She spent $28,483,084.
Joe, can you put that up on the screen?
Okay, thank you for reminding me.
Yes, this way
I'm very pleased to put that up on the screen because I think those figures are astonishing. Just astonishing. I mean, she is a money machine. That's how she has won in that purple district. Okay, look at that. $28,483,084 spent for a House seat. Cash on hand at the end of the race was $7,434,959. That's a big reason why she's running for the Senate now.
Right, she's got the cash on hand.
Yeah, of course, for the Senate race, there probably $100 million is going to be spent. But still, she has a big cash advantage over the other candidates right now.
Mm-hmm. She sure does.
So she starts out in that way. And then look at Scott Bohr, the Republican who ran against her. Raised $3,040,000, spent $3,026,644. Now, if you raise $3 million, you normally have a very good chance to win the race. Okay, but Katie Porter actually drowned him in spending. Now, that's a purple district. Very interesting, though. Katie Porter got 731,872 in outside spending supporting her, but $9,207,047 opposing her. That is an astonishing figure opposing her.
Right, and that's what they thought. I guess the other people that didn't have a lot of money thought that money opposing her would do something.
They were trying to beat her with outside money. Scott Bohr really had $9,207,047 being spent in addition to the $3 million he directly spent. So Katie Porter's $28 million was really opposed by over $12 million in this race. That's what happened in this race. But let's look at the candidates. We're going to learn more if we look at the candidates here. Katie Porter won with 51.7% of the vote. She almost got beat because this is a purple district that had been Republican until she took it over. every race she's run has been a difficult race for her. She has not had it easy. And this year, of course, I think this was the closest race for her. Uh, Interestingly, her sources of funds, small individual contributions, $14,267,861, 55.6% of what she raised. Now that since there was so much outside spending in it, I'm not going to say that was enough for her to win this race, because with all the outside spending against her, it certainly wasn't. But if the rule was operative, the dump the corruption rule was operative, and she knew it, and as a result, she didn't take any large individual contributions, and she didn't take any PAC contributions or any super PAC money. And her opponent was disqualified because he took that money. She would have swamped him with small individual contributions. In other words, if the rule was in place and everybody was voting that way, Katie Porter might very well have swamped her opponent in this race. Because what did he do in small contributions? Only 96,000, 3.2% of what he raised. He raised most of his money from large individual contributions and PACs and candidate self-financing, 55,800, and 235,000 in the other category, that we don't know about here. Let's look at that outside spending for a minute. There we go. And we've seen the totals already. But let's see who are the outside spenders. California Association of Realtors, a PAC, spending money outside of the race, not giving to a candidate, but spending on outside ads. $386,341. Who do you suppose they were for?
Mm-hmm.
The Club for Growth, $42,190. The Club for Growth Action, that's a super PAC. They spent $2.3 million, and they didn't spend it on Katie Porter. The Congressional Leadership Fund, that's a carry committee. It's a Republican carry committee. So they spent that on Scott Baugh. So it was these two super PACs for Growth Action and the Congressional Leadership Fund that were responsible for the 9 million plus that he raised. You can see it right there. And the Democratic PAC money outside spending was relatively small for her. The House Majority PAC carry committee, that of course is Nancy Pelosi's PAC. They gave her $91,000. But that was a drop in the bucket compared to what Scott Baugh was spending, or what he was getting in outside money. I shouldn't say what he was spending because he wasn't spending it. So I think the story of the campaign is very much reflected in what we see from the super PACs and from the PACs in outside spending, non-campaign spending, impacting the campaigns. There was one super PAC called Stop Socialism in Orange County. They spent 138,399 against Katie Porter. So I think that was a very interesting race. Okay, I come back again to the candidate tab. To underline once more, Katie Porter's small dollar fundraising. It's quite a machine she has there for small dollar fundraising. $14 million there. The small dollar contributions were higher than the large individual contributions. So she was not primarily relying on rich folks and PACs. I thought that was just interesting. Of course, she flunks the litmus test too, because she did get 10.5 million from the rich folks and 686,000 from the PACs. So she still fails. Okay, but we see she could probably survive in a dump the corruption environment because she's got a lot of financial support from small donors. So if she stopped taking the big money, Steve says, I will vote against her. I don't care if it's Adolf Hitler. Are you saying Katie Porter is Adolf Hitler because she went over to Israel and supported Netanyahu and went crazy over Netanyahu? I mean, when I saw that, I thought, what the fuck is her problem? What is her problem?
It's crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy.
That was crazy. That was crazy. Ghostart says PSA Newsom Silicon Valley Bank. Yeah, probably he was one of the depositors at Silicon Valley Bank, right? Steve says Biden Feinstein if they don't remember what they forgot to do. Biden Feinstein 2024, Steve says, the dementia party. They tried to recall Katie Valenzuela more than one time, but couldn't get enough signatures for doing that. For doing what she said she would do. I read that incorrectly, but I think Steve had a few problems stating that. Steve says, Kenneth Mejia has a bright future. Remember the name. I do remember the name. I remember the name from 2018 when he was running green. He was an outstanding candidate. Okay, D, any more takes on it? Okay, any more comments on this?
It's just really a sad state of affairs. It really is.
It is a sad state of affairs. 3 more failures and re-examining the disappointing Katie Porter.
And we see how powerful, again, the Israeli lobby is.
Yeah, how powerful it is. Yeah. She doesn't want to be opposed by the Israeli lobby. She doesn't want to find 9 million in outside money against her.
And that is, it is so wrong for another country to be doing that in our elections. Everybody's always screaming about, oh, Russia's impact on our elections. There's no country that compares to Israel with our elections.
Yes, but Israel isn't doing that directly, as far as we can tell. In other words, it's American billionaires who support Israel that give Israel that influence over our elections.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing we have to do, I have to add, of course, that if everybody was supporting the Dump the Corruption campaign, then anybody who got large super PAC support from the Israeli friendly billionaires would be voted against
Right,
by
because
all the people.
exactly, because if there was a bunch of Russian billionaires doing that, we wouldn't stand for that. It
Yeah, but
doesn't matter
again,
what country it is. It doesn't matter
okay,
what
again,
country it is.
it's not the same thing. The analogy is, okay, if there was a billionaire here who was pro-Russian and who was primarying people because they were unwilling to support a pro-Russian foreign policy, we wouldn't stand for that. No, we wouldn't. We'd probably put the guy in jail. I mean, I'm assuming that would be a guy.
Well, yeah, it's just, it is what it is. And you don't see that. Billionaires representing other countries and going through all the candidates and all the states and all the primaries.
It's just awful to see that.
It is.
Just awful. They beat not just Nina Turner, okay, and Nita Lam, but they beat Jessica Cisneros also. And they beat Andy Levin.
It's a shame. It really is. It's just American people have no say. It's they just spend on ads. They spend on so much.
Okay, I beg to differ. The American people do have a say,
But their mindset is
but
being
they have to support a dump the corruption campaign. They have to understand that this money is buying elections,
the
that
money's
it's
buying
buying
election.
representatives, that it's undermining democracy, and that the only way to stop it is for them to decide to vote against the big money, make it toxic to the candidates.
And Lana's got a good point. Lana says people don't vote in the primary, and that's a huge problem.
Absolutely. They got to vote in the primaries. If they voted in the primaries in New York, then maybe Dan Goldman would have been beaten.
And if people really took the time to look into things instead of just paying attention to the commercials,
That's what we need. We definitely need that, D. Steve Wolfman says, Doc, investigate Katie Porter Zionist. I had no idea from her previous record that Katie Porter was particularly Zionistic. I mean, I think that's something new. I think she's picking that up because she wants to be elected senator. And she's trying to out Zionist Adam Schiff.
It's just so crazy having to out Zionist somebody else.
Yeah. I'll say one thing for Katie Porter, though. She and Elizabeth Warren are introducing a bill, have introduced a bill in Congress to repeal the Republican changes to the act that was passed in 2010 to regulate the banks that actually required that banks the size of the Silicon Valley Bank were exempt from the litmus tests that they have to pass. In other words, under the Dodd-Frank bill, the banks that are the same size as the Silicon Valley Bank would have been subject to regulations that would have stopped the crash. But those regulations were gotten rid of by the Trump administration under pressure from many in the banking industry, including the president of Silicon Valley Bank, which is ironic because he would have his bank today if he hadn't participated in getting the Congress to repeal the Dodd-Frank provisions. So basically, he screwed himself. That's a little Schadenfreude, in my view. Okay, so folks, I think.
Lana has another.
I'm sorry.
Lana has another question.
Yeah, I'll bet she does. I was scrolling down now to see whether Lana would have other questions. Okay, let me go to the bottom.
Yeah, 10:05.
Yeah. How do you feel about reform for the mark-to-market FDIC rules so that the lower rate treasuries could more easily be turned into the higher ones? The bank really wasn't insolvent. What I believe is that there ought to be a rule that if a bank is insolvent, in other words, they turn out to be insolvent under the tests, okay, that are applied now, that there be a tripwire that the Federal Reserve has to look at the bank, see if the so-called insolvency is being caused by their holdings of longer term treasuries. And if that's the case, then the rule should say that the Fed is mandated to step in and to turn those long term treasuries into cash. I know there's some moral hazard, okay, in doing that. But if it's undertaken through a tripwire kind of arrangement, I think the moral hazard is not so serious, and it would allow the Federal Reserve to protect the system from unnecessary crashes. In the case of Silicon Valley, they had bought enough in long term treasuries that if those were converted into dollars, they would have been solvent. So if the Fed would have stepped in and simply bought the long term treasuries and exchanged them for cash, then Silicon Valley would have been able to have a positive cash balance and there wouldn't have been a crisis. So I'm for that kind of rule. I'm not stating it too clearly because I haven't had a chance to think about it, but to me that's obvious, simple and obvious that the Fed can simply step in when they say that and say, uh-oh, we're going to stop this bank from being insolvent by buying back the treasuries. Kay says, night all, love you. We love you, Kay. Lana says, go start. VA Dem also was responsible for those changes under Trump. You mean Mark Warner, right? Doc, are bonds soaring? Treasuries, you mean? Okay. I don't know at this point whether they're soaring. Steve says, I got some money in bonds. So maybe you can sell them for a higher price, Steve, in the open market. And Ghostad says, hi, Lana Del hates the clock. Person turquoise waving vet admin. Lana says, right, because the raise in interest rates caused the issue with Silicon Valley Bank. Yes, right. Right. Can't think of his name. His father was married to Liz Taylor. You're thinking, Kay, of Mark Warner. But I don't think that Mark Warner is the son of the old Senator Warner who was married to Liz Taylor. I don't believe they're related, even though the last name is the same. I might be wrong about that, but I'd never heard that Mark Warner was married to was the son, okay, of John Warner. I think Mark Warner made uh, his own money. He became a very rich man. Uh, okay, I believe by investing in the internet in the early days. It was either that or in telephone companies stocks. But he made something like 250 million, which allowed him to get rich, and so allowed him to become first the governor of Virginia, and then the senator forever. PSA, they used FRA 13.3 again, hashtag EUA. You'll have to explain all those acronyms to me, Go Start. Steve Wolfbrand said, Richard Burton? No. After she divorced Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor married John Warner, who was the senator from Virginia back then. He was kind of a courtly gentleman. I have no idea why he attracted or how he attracted her interest, but he did, and they were married for a few years at least. She did not immediately divorce him. So they must have had some happy days. Solana said, "No, I think you said that pretty well. All of this drama over Silicon Valley Bank was unnecessary." Lana said, "Warner, yes." And she said, "Oops, I thought they were related." Well, maybe they are. I mean, I'm not absolutely sure. I've never thought of that before, actually. But they don't look at all like each other. The only resemblance is that they're Caucasian. They're both Caucasian, and they're tall. And they're also have a very conservative outlook for Democrats. I'm not sure whether John Warner was a racist. I don't recall him being one. I wonder if Elizabeth Taylor would have married him if he was one. But he was a very, very conservative Democratic senator, as is the general rule for Virginia senators. Lana says, "Go start. I don't understand that last comment you made." Steve Wolfbrand says, "Happy days." And what my wife Bonnie always says when she toasts is, "Happy days and silly nights." Anyway, folks, Lanadell says, "Well, I can be wrong. I thought Manchin is native. It turns out he is Italian. Mancini is his family name." Really? That is funny, Lana. And Ghostart says Newsom was also involved with 3 companies associated with Silicon Valley Bank, all undisclosed. Steve Wolfman says all tall Caucasians look alike.
No,
I'm not so much insulted by that because I'm not a tall Caucasian. I'm just a short one. Anyway, Lana says, "Yes, Steve." Okay, guys, any more jokes to lighten the mood? We're almost through the whole Congressional Progressive Caucus, and every single one has failed the litmus test.
Yes, they get a big F.
Yeah, they get a big F. Frankly, I suppose the ones who come closest to passing it, because they do rely so heavily on small contributions, are probably AOC and Katie Porter. Because AOC also had an enormous total of small individual contributions. I haven't checked, totals lately, but it's pretty much that. Ghostat says Pentagon says mothership possibly sending probes. Face green, smiling, text green, game over. Lana says we could go on. Yes, go start. Take me to your leader ASAP. Robert Copeland says they're all going to fail the litmus test. Yes, I think they are. As I said earlier, Robert, there are only a handful left to go. We'll be through with them over the next 2 shows. And then we'll probably go on to see whether the pattern of contributions is the same or similar with regular Democrats. And then we'll check to see whether the pattern of contributions, with non-members of the CPC, I'm not going to go over all of them, of course, just do a sampling, and then do a sampling of the Republicans, and maybe a sampling of the Freedom Caucus members to see if everybody fails the litmus test. If I find that everybody fails the litmus test, I will find this a desirable result because I'm really coming to think that the money in politics has rotted all these Congress people, that there's not one who is not bought. And by the way, if Katie Porter wins that race in California, you can be sure she will only do it by getting herself thoroughly bought by the Israeli lobby. That's got to be in the cards when you look at the behavior she's engaging in right now.
Right, because the Republicans, you see how they are all tripping over each other. Who loves Israel the most?
Oh, no. Oh, it's disgusting. Just disgusting.
And then you have it was interesting where what gets Adam with his name Shift is you remember all the time when Trump was in office, he used to call him Pencil Neck.
Oh, I didn't remember people called him pencil neck, but that's okay. Brandy Weaver says, it's rotted the entire system we have. Yes, it is. So
It
I
sure
wouldn't
has.
be at all sorry to see, if our campaign was successful, that all 435 members of the Congress were kicked out. I would really love that.
Mhm.
I'd love to see 435 new faces, none of whom took any of the big money. I mean, that is sure to change America. Sure to change America.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, no more Hakeem Jeffries, no more Catherine Clark, no more Jim Clyburn, no more Richie Neal. Are you kidding? We could actually get something done. Gostad says, Lana Dell, my sis is in Texas. I'm 3 days sober, face green, smiling. Robert Copeland says, wait until you do the U.S. Senate. Yeah, I am going to do the U.S. Senate. That's going to be a travesty. Lana says, ugh, Hakeem Jeffries. Ugh is right. Oh, God. And Robert Copeland says no more Pegosi, but we know that already. She's leaving anyway. This is probably her last term. She's not going to run again in 2024. She's finally going to go home to her grandchildren. Then she's probably going to try to run one of them for Congress. And then that person can be defeated by the Dump the Corruption campaign. Wouldn't that be ironic? Brandy says it's why we are rebuilding our state Green Party. No more Nancy Pegosi. Boy, that would be wonderful.
She keeps calling me Mark.
Huh?
Pelosi keeps calling us Mark.
Oh, you mean when she sends us emails?
Yeah.
She keeps referring to us as Mark. Well, that's easily explainable. When I was doing knowledge management, I was working very closely with a guy whose first name was Mark. So closely that I was just very closely associated with him. He was my co-author on a number of things, and we were collaborating on all sorts of things. And anyway, she probably picked up her merge purge program didn't work. and it got confused, and it calls me Mark.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Okay.
Merge purge programs often get confused. They need better algorithms. Any other comments, folks? If not, I am going to call it a night. And I'll see you tomorrow. I haven't decided what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. I may decide to talk about the Silicon Valley Bank, but I may decide to talk about something else as well. I have a number of possibilities of very important things to talk about. And Lana says, yes, SVB, SVB. Yeah, maybe Silicon Valley Bank, but there's so much good stuff that's being written about that now. There was a very good piece by Nathan Tankus, which I think I sent you a link to, Lana. And so, anyway, by tomorrow night, all the significant things may already have been said by Silicon Valley Bank, and I'm not sure that I'll have anything to add. What I am going to do is check to see whether Bill Black has written something. And Lana said, can you go over what Nathan said for people who didn't see it? Well, maybe I can, but I'm not sure that I want to, because people can go and read what Nathan said. But it may be interesting to do that. I'll see. I'll give it real consideration. But I'd also like to see whether Bill Black has anything that he posted at New Economic Perspectives. That blog has been pretty moribund lately, but it's possible that Bill put up something quickly there. So let me see. That's the Modern Money Theory blog at the UMKC site, neweconomicperspectives.org. Now, the last blog there was posted on April 9th, 2020 by J.D. Alt. So it's not there. Okay. I don't think Bill Black has a Substack. I don't think he ever went into that. So we can't look for it in the Substack, but he's got to have something out on this soon, Lana, because, he's the best at this. Steve Wolbrand says Pelosi's husband is a drunk. He says, me too, but I don't drive that way. Lana says, I can't wait to see what Bill Black says. And she says, Nathan is always fabulous. Yeah, Nathan is always worth reading, certainly. Lana says, I imagine Scott Fullweiler will weigh in too. I'm not sure Scott will. But Bill, of course, has both the legal and the MMT background, put together. So I'm sure Bill is going to weigh in. I mean, that's his wheelhouse. He knows all about it. So as I said before, I am going to say good night. And I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll be talking about something important.
Yes.
Maybe Silicon Valley Bank.
And if you haven't hit the like button yet, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. And if someone can please buy Joe a cup of coffee, that would be very, very nice.
That would be very nice. And if someone can please visit my Patreon account, uh, that would also be greatly appreciated. Okay, those accounts are simply sitting there. And we really do need the money over here. So we certainly would appreciate it if you can spare some, but only if you can spare some. I understand that a lot of people cannot spare. So thank you for coming. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. And also thank you, Dee, for helping me and supporting me with this
Yes, my pleasure.
and reminding people about the business aspects of those because I always do forget to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Will you be coming tomorrow night?
Oh, yes, I can come tomorrow night.
That's great. That'll be great. So good night, everyone.
Yes, good night, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yes, we will.